1893, and some excavations of an archaeological nature were taking place within inside these walls, and they found an object inside an abandoned well. Over 130 years on today, we still can't explain why that object was in the well, and more importantly than all, why was that object in this part of Britain? It really didn't belong here. This was once a hugely important Iron Age settlement, Caliva, the Atrebates tribe, and after that period of time, well, of course, we became Roman, hence the walls that surround us now are the best examples here in Britain. We have roots in from every direction, showing how important this was for the Romans. But then something really odd happened. Within 50 years of the end of Roman rule in Britain, it was deserted. Now that didn't happen a huge amount in this country, especially one that was as sizable and important as this settlement. But here, abandonment took place, and part of the reason we know when, because the wells were backfilled with specific items. 1893, and we're into the 4th year of the excavations here, specifically block 9 house 1, and we find a well 8 feet deep, and it holds the Ogham or Ogham Stone. They did indeed find what was referred to as the Ogham or Ogham Stone, pronunciation depending on the context, and it really didn't belong here. This stone is now held in Reading Museum and has been described as phallic in shape. Now that's not the first word that sprung to mind. Either way, it's around 60 centimetres tall and was described as a pillar stone. Now when those 1893 excavations took place, well, they retrieved all of the items and they took note of the layers and the context. They even noted that the stone pillar had crushed a 3rd century pewter vessel. They took the pillar out, they washed it, they cleaned it all up, and as they were doing that, something staggering came into view. The pillar stone had inscriptions on it, but not just any inscription. 2 vertical lines on its upper section with a series of horizontal lines of varying sizes. Pretty quickly this was understood to be an extremely old form of an early Irish language. This was as staggering back then as it is today, not least because the well being blocked off in 450 AD meant that this was one of the earliest surviving examples of that language. But also, perhaps even more confusing, is this by quite some distance is the most easterly find of these inscriptions. You'd have to travel maybe 80 to 100 miles west to Devon and Cornwall or South Wales to find the next. So what did this Irish inscription even mean? And of course the biggest question of all today is exactly why was this early medieval Irish language here in what is now Middle England within these Roman walls? Let's try and unwrap this today. Oh, and yep, you have full permission to let me know what you think as we unravel this in the comments below. So those inscriptions on the pillar, the stone, well, they were said to be part of a early medieval language, and they would form part of an early Irish language. Now they are split, those forms split into 25 letters, which are then subdivided into 5 categories depending on the shape and the stroke of those letters. Okay, so very briefly, there are 2 main theories as to the existence and the creation of this language. Because of its basic form, it's long been considered a cryptic alphabet designed by the Irish to hide their words, text and inscriptions from the Latin speakers of the world, a secret means to communicate and hide important stuff from the Romans, whether during the Roman period or perhaps immediately after it, when the Irish were invading into western mainland Britain. The second train of thought is this language was first conceived by the early Christian communities in Ireland. The idea being primitive Irish might have been difficult to lay out in Latin. This runs along the idea that the 4th century Irish settlers into West Wales could have developed this language by and large because several inscriptions in that area have both Irish and Latin on them. They are indeed bilingual. Now, of course, there are more theories, but those are the 2 that seem to be widely accepted by most scholars and academics. Now, let's get on to the most important aspects. Why exactly was this stone here? But first and foremost, perhaps one of the biggest questions, why did it not belong here? So back in 1893, this object was very much appreciated for what it was and where it was. They even made a separate report on this object in its own right. Such was the fascination. And the same question occurred to them: why exactly was it here? And even if we look at the location of all the inscriptions of the language found to date, you can see why that even if this object was only found yesterday, how staggering it is. So we have two theories on their language and its meaning, but where do we find them? Where do we find that language in its context of the environment and the landscape around us? Now, to read Ogham, you need to start down here, bottom left, and read upwards. So perhaps the inscriber was doing this when the object was laid flat before putting it into position. You then read the next line across to the right, if that makes sense. So the vast majority of these are found on sort of pillars or monuments or large stones. These are inscriptions, and of the 400 we know about today, well, 383 of those are of what they would refer to as an orthodox language, and that followed a form. It was describing a person or their relationship to the land or a tribe or their ancestry. So this one means son, this one means descendants, this one means tribes, and so on. The names and descriptions get really interesting the more you read, but that's for another day. Our question now is, what exactly did our stone say, and does that help us understand why it was here so far out of context? So John Rees, back in 1893, described the inscription to read Ibi Catus, son of the tribe of. Now back in 2012, this was reconsidered by A.J. Bard, suggesting the following: the something of Tibicus, son of the tribe of. That missing word at the start could either be memorial or land. Here is the absolute fascination though, because Bard goes on to suggest that this language on the Ogham or Ogham Stone formed part of a very early Ogham script. For that to be found here is staggering, out of complete context of where we would think it would be. Okay, so what exactly have we got? Well, we have a very early Irish language in this Ogham script. We have a really curious location here, 80 miles east of any other discovery of a type of inscription like this. And of course we now have this curious new name. Who exactly were they? Let's head to the amphitheatre and try and unpick this. Now, the abandoning of that well, that building, probably marked the end of the building's use and probably the entire site as a whole. Now, we have an approximate date of early 5th century, which does tie in quite well with the end of Roman rule, of course. But that in itself brings up a lot of questions about this stone and its context. So why are we seeing a memorial or land boundary recognition or inscriptions of a very early Irish tribal leader, at least in this area, in late Roman rule? Well, maybe we're not. Maybe this is the time period now after Roman rule, and that would add up a bit more. Either way, come and have a look at this. Firstly, the suggestion is that this column could have well formed part of the building of something like what we would consider a lean-to today, an outbuilding. Now, subsequently, this could have been inscribed whilst in situ. This would make more sense if we see the word land as that first missing word. Are we then seeing an Irish immigrant in this house simply making a discreet marking within the building that he resided? Okay, in terms of my favourite things to go and see, favourite landscapes, favourite aspects of filming, well, this is definitely up there with them in the perhaps the top 5 list. This is the Roman amphitheatre of Caliva Atrebatum. Now, this site has been excavated extensively over a period of perhaps 20-25 years in modern times, let alone the excavations that took place back in 1893 and before. And the most important thing is that there was no tomb or body found with any association to this whatsoever. So perhaps this person that brought the inscription or made the inscription, maybe they were on a pilgrimage towards Rome, or perhaps they stopped over here along the way and it was maybe a memorial to one of their descendants, or perhaps there was a wider Irish population here soon after Roman rule and this type of writing was widely understood. For me, I'm not so sure on this one, because surely we'd be finding a lot more in this area or perhaps further east. Until we do, this could remain one of life's unsolved mysteries. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And when you have commented, well, you can do up to 3 different things. Number 1, you can click on the like button if you haven't done that already. Number 2, if you haven't subscribed already, we'll click on subscribe. And number 3, well, if you like this type of content and you want some behind the scenes actions or just to support the channel, that'd be amazing. We do have a join button and of course a Patreon. You can find the links in the pinned comment and the description below. I've been Paul. I hope you've enjoyed this. We'll see you this time next week.